Are you leveling up your founder game in the middle of a disaster or while putting out fires in your startup? Our guest is an investor, founder, and advisor to companies, and he's on a mission to empower folks to level up their game professionally and personally before the disasters and fires strike. Get ready for a delicious conversation on the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And I don't need to use my imagination. I've got a pretty good idea of what you all are crawling through every single day. I mean, I launched and built 4 businesses of my own, one heavily VC backed, another angel backed, another 2 charming personality bootstrap backed. And I have to tell you, I am in awe and wonder of how you show up for your business, for your dreams every single day. And I'm grateful you carved out time to tune in to the Startup Life Live Show, because as you do better, your business does better, and you will up your game big time today with our amazing guest. So if you are watching this live right now or later via video, be sure to click on that like button. And if you're tuning in via YouTube, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And a way to get an alert of whenever I post a new show, please hop on over to the Startup Life Live meetup group, where you'll be able to get a deep dive into all the guests that we have on this show, their background, and exactly what you're going to be able to grab and the gems that they're going to be laying down for you and your business. Wow, we have an opportunity to celebrate their remarkable work in the world. I have a few Andelicious announcements to share with you. Of course, we always start off with hello, Arlen's Academy. She has everything you need to know about launching a successful business all in one place. Hop on over there. She's always uploading new content that will help ease your founder and startup journey. And Mr. Calacan is right here. Jason, he has a new platform called Inside. If you haven't joined it, go join it right now. And he's having a phenomenal event October 24th and 26th called Meet Our 4 Fund. It's a virtual summit, and you'll be joining 11,000 plus founders and learn from top VCs about raising capital and startup growth. So register at meetourfund.com. Links are always in the show notes. And you know, I love to brag on our incredible groups and opportunities here in Boston, and TCN, the Capital Network, is always helping founders up their game. Creating a clear and enticing pitch deck is crucial at any stage of your startup funding process, and joining our Own Your Story Bootcamp will help you build a compelling pitch deck that can clearly and concisely communicate the most important aspects of your business and get feedback and advice from investors. And be sure to use Andelicious at checkout to receive 50% off of any of the Capital Network's programs. So I want to just jump in. I've got to get our guest in the room as soon as possible here. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of him and bring him into the room as soon as possible. It's the one and only Eric Siu. He's an investor, founder, and advisor to companies, and on a mission to empower folks to level up their game professionally and personally. And as the founder of digital marketing agency Single Grain, Eric has worked with companies such as Amazon, Uber, and Salesforce. He has invested in startups like 8 Sleep, Levels, Lime, Toucan, and more. And if that weren't enough, he hosts 2 podcasts, Marketing School with Neil Patel, how much do we love Neil, and Leveling Up, an entrepreneurial podcast where he dissects growth levers that help businesses scale. We're going to dive deep into all his deliciousness today. Eric, thank you for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ande. I love the energy, and excited to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you too. Eric, where are you sitting right now? What part of the world are you in?
I am in Miami.
Oh, beautiful. Well, we're waving here from Boston and from around the world, folks. If you're tuning in live, be sure to let us know where you're hailing from. And, you know, Eric, I love to help other founders amplify their brand. So, folks, share your business name, one-liner, and website URL in the comments, and we will showcase and celebrate your wonderful work live during the show. And of course, questions are welcome. Just pop them in. We learn from each other. You all know the drill. And those of you who are watching the replay or listening to the podcast, thank you so much. And be sure to reach out post-show with anything or any question you may have. So, Eric, I always like to know what the heck, why did somebody leave, quote, the guaranteed paycheck and start off in life in this direction of entrepreneurship? But with you, I mean, you are a marketing, I'm going to say it, genius. You really know what and how to create brand promise, emotional connection, from a brand to their users, to their consumers. What lights your heart up about marketing, both traditional, because you've done both, digital, and then the growth hacking? And then we'll get a little bit into your background and what led you to this point in life.
Yeah, sure. So the way I look at marketing, I just look at it as whether it's growth hacking, traditional, or we talk about direct response or different channels, they all fall under the marketing umbrella. So it's really just whatever is working at the time. So what's working right now as of this recording is, okay, organic reach on LinkedIn is great. Organic reach on Shorts, Reels, TikTok's great. That's kind of the meta right now, but also building for the long term. You're doing this podcast for a reason, because it works for the long term and retention's really good. So for me, it's just figuring out what's really working well. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to doing direct response. It doesn't mean I'm opposed to advertising on, taboo websites or whatever. It's just whatever's working and wherever my audience is hanging out. That's marketing 101. And marketing really is just bringing people to the point of sale. So I'm indifferent to any channel or anything like that.
I love that. And in the founder world, Eric, it's all about what makes your heart sing, your passionate, your why, because this world is not easy, when you're launching a business and building a business. So having something that you're passionate about, and especially in the constantly churning and turning and changing world of marketing, digital marketing, it's so great to have a passion just for the ability to reach folks with a good message. So let's chat about your passion for gaming and what it taught you about marketing, because I'm a mom of a gamer, and I always wondered, like, what the heck is he going to do, right? He went on and got his degree in game design, but I watched him build relationships around the world with his eSports and doing all these things. How did your lived experience with gaming inform how you wanted to move forward in the world?
Well, I can tell you're a really supportive parent, and I think from what my feeling of this, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, that you actually supported your son on his endeavors. Is that true?
Yes, I would hear him have conversations. I mean, 13 years old, bringing leadership and team building. Guys, we only have 12,000 left. We can't spend it on just one rifle. We got to think about how we're going to be using this. And that's it. Go, go. And just this whole community he had. I was really impressed.
So what's amazing is, so I'm going to speak to two sides right now. Like, you're an amazing supportive parent, right? The flip side of it is when you have at least for me, like an Asian parent that's a tiger mom, it's a little different, right?
Yeah.
And so it was very contentious growing up. And for me, I kind of had to hide it, right? Whereas if you have a parent that was curious about it, that makes it more acceptable for example, your son, he continued to pursue his endeavors, right?
Right.
For me, I kind of had to hide it a little bit. But to your point,
because you weren't looking at your biology book, not to stereotype, but tiger moms, are really focused on getting your STEM skills going.
Well, I mean, STEM wasn't even a thing at the time. I mean, more so I had my Algebra 2 book in front of me when I was going on raids, right? And then when she'd come in the room, I'd turn off the monitor and act like I was doing the work. And then when everyone would move forward to, 40 people going against a dragon, I'm the one sitting behind, I'm hurting my team, right? So to your point, what I learned from gaming and how it applies to everything, just look at gaming as sports. Replace the word game with sports.
Right. And
sports is a game itself. That's where you learn camaraderie. That's where you learn teamwork. That's where you learn communication. And this is where you learn how to build something for the long term. You learn how to deal with adversity as well. And so it's the same thing. You can overtrain in the world of games. You play too much. You eat too much fast food. You're gonna lose your physical and your mental health, right? Whereas in sports, if you overtrain, you can tear your ACL. So to me, it's the same thing. And, over time, I mean, the world's continuing to get more and more used to it. And you have amazing parents like you, Ande, that are more curious and supportive. And so yeah.
Yeah. So two things, parents, since I can speak from this point, social skills are so important. So sometimes, your kid is safer at home chatting with people around the world than maybe out doing something. A, and B, gamers don't do drugs or anything that's going to alter their mental state. They have to be on point. and they have to be really, just ready to bring their all to the game. And what I learned too, Eric, to your point about esports, is my son was very clear, Mom, it's not just about Grand Theft Auto. Okay. This is esports. We don't really call it gaming. We call it esports. For that reason, it's the credibility. So I love that. Thank you. And parents, really, the social skills. Eric, just one quick story. We had a founder on here who got his degree, his MD, was treating folks in ICU and just decided, nope, I can't do this. And he went and launched his own game business instead. I mean, a doctor. And that's because he built up relationships over the years on his game. So let's move on and find out what compelled you to begin your entrepreneurial adventures. And I believe it's around 2013. And did you have role models? And what, or were you that person hustling product in third grade? Or, how did you fall into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, for me, 2010, 2011 or so, that's when I learned digital marketing. Maybe I was, 24, 25, maybe not, that was 23. I was 23. Yeah. And so 23, within that first year after I learned, so I took an unpaid internship, I joined this agency, and I basically took all my money and I bought a magic e-commerce store that was making like $300 a day. So that was actually my first foray into entrepreneurship. So I was already kind of doing it. And then I learned, made a lot of mistakes that way, but I didn't really jump into it until I took over this company, Single Grain. So I didn't start the company, but it was a failing SEO agency that I took over at the age of 27. And I'm happy to share the story on it, but that's kind of how I fell into it.
Yeah. And I love that, because folks, you don't have to have the idea. You can take something and you know how much easier it is to find something and improve it. And so you found the bare bones of what they had and you took it. And how did you improve it as far as the digital marketing agency?
I actually made it worse. So, a 27-year-old, for me, just to rewind real quick, 26-year-old me was actually leading marketing at a startup. And bear in mind, I only learned marketing like 2-3 years ago. And I was all of a sudden I'm managing a team, right? I didn't even know what I was doing, but for that company, I basically gambled the entire company on YouTube ads because the CEO was going to fire me 1 month into the job. And so I was like, okay, well, all in. And it comes from my gambling background, right? And that worked out for the company. We brought our, we were, basically acquiring like less than 1,000 users a month. And then after I bet the entire company, we're acquiring like 5,000 plus users a month. And at that point, my podcast co-host Neil had asked me, he said, hey, you've helped this company. Can you help save this like failing SEO agency, which I had no interest in. And, then I thought about it a little more, and, a lot of life is really just about reframing how you think about things. And I was like, well, if I can help save this company, then I think I can do anything, because it's like, it's an agency, which I thought, because I come from tech, I'm too good for a service company, right? Which is incorrect. Happy to explain more later. But, I was like, okay, let's try it. So I came into this company as the number 2, as the chief operating officer. And basically 6 months into it, the founder of the company decided that he wanted out. And at that point, Neil had told me, because the ship was continuing to sink. He's like, hey, look, there's no brand equity in this company right now. There's nothing here. As your friend, like, you should go do something else. And I said, hey, like, what if I just buy it, right? And so basically what I did was I negotiated I paid $2 out of pocket for the company. So $1 for 10% of Neil's shares and 1% for 10% of Heaton Shaw's shares. So that's his partner at the time. And then the rest was seller finance, right? And I didn't even know it was called seller finance at that time.
Talk a little bit about seller finance for those tuning in.
Sure. So seller financing is when let's say the deal is for $1 million. And let's say you put $200,000 down initially for the company. Well, the other $800,000, you might not actually have that. And so what you can do is say, hey, go to the seller and say, hey, you know what? I'll pay you this $800,000 over the next 3, 4, 5 years or so. And maybe we'll tack on some interest. Maybe we won't. But the main thing I learned from doing deals like this in the very beginning is that the price is important when you're buying a company, but also the terms are arguably more important, because let's say if I bought a company for $1 billion, but I'm going to pay it over like infinite years, then it doesn't matter. I can pay $1 a year, right? So there's a lot of different ways to play around with a deal.
Thank you for going deep on that, because we have newbie founders that tune into the show. And that's really a great explanation of seller financing and different ways, folks, that you can leverage and make something happen, especially if you want to buy a failing business. So as you began to turn it around, what did that look like?
I mean, it looked bad. I mean, so 27 years, the bad to worse comment actually came from the original founders. Like, oh, you made it go from bad to worse. So basically I had zero clue what I was doing. I shut down the office, right, in San Francisco, and I moved everything down to Santa Monica. I didn't bother to try to build rapport with anybody. And then I made swift changes to like the different services that we offered. And the biggest thing I did, this happened yesterday, the Patagonian founder just gave his company away, right? So I read his book called Let My People Go Surfing, which is a great book, highly recommended, but I took it too literally. So the problem was Let My People Go Surfing basically said, hey, like, you don't want to micromanage your people. You want to let them go surfing at lunch and all that. I was like, oh yeah, let my people go surfing. Sounds good. So I stopped showing up to the office. And then that's how things went from bad to worse. And that's how we dropped all the way down to one employee, all the way to the point where my outside accounting firm actually called and said, hey, I think it might be time to shut it down. And actually at the time I had received a job offer that was like a really, let's just say it was a really lucrative job offer. So that's how we got to that point.
Wow. Well, I'm on the edge of my seat because Single Grain is still around. Yes.
Single Grain's still around. Yes.
Yeah. So how'd you turn it around?
So what happened was the job offer was actually for mid six figures, right? So let's say a couple $100,000 a year was the base salary. And then my bonuses would have been into the seven figures. So it was a lucrative job. And I had accepted it. I was actually looking at apartments in Dallas. So I was supposed to move to Dallas, Texas. And the moment I accepted, there was just something inside me. I was like, no, like, I can't do this. Like, it would be, you think about the Jeff Bezos regret minimization framework, meaning that when you're 80 years old, are you going to regret this decision? I was like, I think I'm going to regret this. And so I was like, no, you know what? I can't do it. And went all in on the business, started learning, doing everything I could, owning up to all the mistakes that I made. And then from there, leveling up, we're down to one employee. So I was like, okay, we're going to refer all our leads out. Right. So we were referring all our leads out. And then after that, we were hiring contractors. And then after that, we started hiring full-time people again. So we built it up again, brick by brick. And I couldn't have done it without all the amazing people that believed in me along the way. And so, now Single Grain is where it is. And, but it took a long time to do it. So,
well, two things I take away from that, Eric, that is just so incredible. One is, folks, really, Eric's right. And the Jeff Bezos theory is right. You do not want to end your days with regrets. It is not worth it. I've lived my life with that theme, and I have incredible stories. Not all of them are good. Not all of my choices have been great, but they really have been amazing learning experiences as a result, because I didn't want to have any regrets. And secondly, how were your parents handling this, watching you, given that they had different hopes for you? And folks, sometimes that's what we get caught up in. We get caught up in what other people think we should be doing. And especially people who love us. And it's so hard for them to watch us as if we're going into a train wreck happening slowly. Entrepreneurship is not for them. So you have to be even more firm in your convictions. So Eric, what were some of the loved ones around you, especially mom and dad or whomever, watching you say goodbye to this incredible lucrative opportunity in Dallas because you knew you could turn this ship around?
Well, they never knew that the company was doing poorly. I never let on because, it just worries the parents more, and it worries them because they also don't understand what's going on, and they also can't help. So they worry more. Yeah. So I didn't really tell them. But then the other thing is they've actually never been concerned. Like, the main thing is, as an only child, they never wanted me to move away. So even when I was like in my mid 20s and I get, a couple $100,000 job offers with like 5-10% profit share, I'd have to move to Philly, and my mom would actually advise me against it. Right. And so even in this scenario, they didn't want me to do it. So I didn't really have much to worry about. As it would have been more headaches if I told them what was going on. So.
Yeah. And folks, you can protect those in your lives. But if you're wondering if you have a beloved in your life, go read my article on Medium called When Your Loved One Isn't an Entrepreneur, because I teach you some really good communication skills and way to have tough conversations, especially when you're dipping into the 401k. All right. Anyway, so now you also have in your background leveling up. Okay. Talk a little bit about that. What was the original mission and vision, and what inspired you to create this platform?
Yeah. So for me, I look at life as a game every day. When I wake up, all the things I'm doing are, to put it in a nerdy way, they're little mini power-ups, right? Whether it's like going for a walk in the morning, doing the journaling in the morning, getting on the bike in the morning, all these things, staying away from the phone, all that stuff, right? These are all mini power-ups to get the day going. And so for me, eventually I'm like, okay, what is that one spiky point of view? Like, what is that one thing that I stand for? Well, I look at life as a game. I want to gamify the organization. I want to gamify life. Like, life is just more fun when you gamify it, when it becomes a game. And so for me, my ultimate mission with leveling up is to train and invest in the next generation of founders. Why? Because I love learning and I love teaching, and I just love making everyone around me better, right? I like making myself better, articulating and doing that. So for me, I believe entrepreneurship is one of the best personal growth tools out there. And so to be able to train people and then invest in those people too, whether if they're bought into the mission, it's just way easier to get better terms. And then the trust is already built. And that's how I look at it. So it's a lifelong thing. In the meantime, the short-term part of it is, when you think about Single Grain or the other businesses that I have, these are cash flow generating machines that allow me to invest in other areas. And most people look down on agency businesses. I certainly did, until I learned just how much you can do with the agency type of business. And I'm happy to share some examples. But
please do, because we can say, oh, that's just a service-based business, especially if you have a product company and you're dealing with inventory, supply chain, all of that. You look at service industry or service agencies and go, geez, I should be so lucky. Talk a little bit about that, why they are a sweet, not just revenue stream, but also a sweet way to be in the world and a meaningful, impactful way.
Most people look down on service businesses because they are quote unquote not scalable. They're very people heavy, very people intensive, and they're just purely not that sexy, right? And so here's the thing. I look at my friend who's based in Victoria. His name's Andrew Wilkinson, and he takes the cash flows from his business and he just continues to buy other internet businesses. So he acquired companies like Dribble, and then a bunch of like different job boards and things like that. And collectively, his holding company right now does over $100 million a year. And, it's a great business for him. It's a great cash flow business. And when you look at cash flow every single year, it's a funding mechanism for you to invest it either back into the business or other opportunities. And then I also look at the multiples around an agency. So most people don't know this, but if your EBITDA, let's just say your profits, I'll oversimplify it. If your profits are more than 5 million a year on your agency, you can get anywhere from a 15 to 20x multiple. Now, I know we're going into a recessionary environment right now, but I still know there are deals getting done for like $500-600 million right now. And for me, it's not to sell necessarily, but even if you can take some chips off the table, great. And to me, because my time in market in the services world has been for a while, I have an unfair advantage there, and I can just continue to compound on it. And most people don't want to compound. They just want to focus on the thing that's new and sexy. It's the AI thing, the generative search, that type of stuff. Like, that's all cool. And by the way, like, we can talk about this later, but the reason why I build an audience too is so I can get good deal flow, so I can invest in these cool companies.
Absolutely. Democratizing investment opportunities, folks. That's what it's all about. So anybody can get in on the deal. But you also brought up a really good point, Eric. And that is this mythology about how your business is supposed to look. Folks, there's nothing wrong with a 5 million, 50 million, $100 million business. We get too caught up, especially in the last very lucrative 8 years, about this big unicorn, IPO, scaling. Now, of course, they're talking zebras as we go, pull back, and retract. But still, when you have that kind of return as a founder, as a team that Eric was just talking about, you can have a greater impact. You can take those funds and put them into other companies as well. And you're right about, go ahead.
Could I add one thing real quick? So it's funny because, I actually just got off the phone with my podcast co-host Neil about an hour ago, and we were just talking about how, the best returns we've seen over the years is not necessarily angel investing. It's not real estate. At the end of the day, it's it's investing in yourself, but B, it's investing into your business. And there's no better, internal rate of return or IRR than actually it is like putting it into your business. If you look at a Jeff Bezos, or you look at a Warren Buffett, if you look at all these people, like that's what they continue to do. They continue to put back into the business.
Oh my gosh. Okay, folks, I think I feel a stitch that on a pillow moment coming on. The best return on your investment is investing in you. You are the IRR. I love that advice, Eric, because it's true. As you up your game, you're going to do better and have a greater impact in the world. Hey, Brent, thank you for tuning in from Ottawa. He's our diverse person and a loyal fan, NFT holder and collector, as a person with a disability. So excited for this episode. tunes in every show to remind us, Eric, that people with visible or invisible disabilities have a lot to offer, especially with innovation to the world. And so be sure, folks, to always reach out to those with disabilities and bring them on your team. And Mark Hutchins, one of our favorite local Boston startup wizards and who has a great new business himself. Hey, Mark, he's saying amazing conversation. Ande and Eric, I love the idea of buying businesses with your agency revenue. Outstanding. So how did you meet Neil Patel? How did you guys become buds?
Sure. And Brent, well, thanks for being a holder as well. So yeah, Neil and I mean, it's a really weird story, and I don't think anybody can replicate this. So my advice would be different than the story itself. So I was drinking from a fire hose when I was learning digital marketing. So again, 23, 24 years old or so. And then I came across this blog called Quick Sprout, which is Neil's blog. And he would often write about how he spent like $600,000 on clothes and this was the ROI, or talk about how he's getting, results this way from SEO. So I thought it was really fascinating. And, on one of the posts, he wrote something and I thought he just made something up, right? So I just emailed him and I was like, hey, did you just make this up? And he actually responded to my amazement. He responded and he responded very quickly. I was like, oh, he actually responds. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm just going to keep asking him questions. So then I just kept hitting him for the next, every week or so, I'd probably have one message for him through email. And at a certain point, you would think that if you are getting pestered, you would just ghost the person. But no, he continued to respond to me. And then it got to the point where it's at the point where he should ghost me, he actually was like, dude, let's just get on the phone.
He was doubling down.
Yeah, he decides to go in an opposite direction. And then I'm like, okay, let's get on the phone. And then we get on the phone. And then you would think at that point, it's like, okay, that's that. But he's like, no, let's, you know what? Let's go meet in person. At the time, his favorite restaurant was Taco Bell. So our first in-person meeting was at Taco Bell in Orange County, California. And he couldn't even drive himself because he's a terrible driver, but that's how we met.
And folks, if you don't know about Neil Patel, you gotta go follow him everywhere you go and where he glows. He is an outstanding, not just marketer, okay, and SEO brilliance. He's a superhuman. He's just so generous and so lovely and delicious in every way, right, Eric?
He's very delicious.
That's great. So let's talk about what really is your expertise. And folks, you've got to follow Eric on Instagram. He has a reel practically every day where they're just carving out his incredible wisdom and inspiration and advice. I mean, I always walk away from, with something that I can do to add value, not only to my own work, but add value to others in the world. So let's talk about where you're going with all of this. Talk about why you wrote the book, Leveling Up. Why was that important for you?
Yeah. So for me, I believe gaming will become synonymous with sports, right? We kind of talked about this earlier. So for me, I'm really good at looking into the future and I'm really good at connecting the dots. Yeah. And so the Leveling Up book itself is basically an introduction to personal growth with people with a gaming mindset, right? And so it to me, or even to you, Ande, it's probably nothing new, but to people that have a gaming mindset, it's like, okay, if I can even change one person's life here, then it's worth it. But more than anything, there's a mission behind it for the long term. It's something that can live on without me. Right. Where, hey, if life's a game, it makes it more enjoyable. That is something that can live on without me. And, I have the domain for it. We got the book and, long term, that's just what I want to do for the rest of my life. So even the businesses that I have right now, it's all part of a game. It's all part of a bigger plan. Right. Mm-hmm. And to me, if I think business is the ultimate game, I'm going to keep playing it. A lot of my friends, they don't need to work anymore. Let's say a Neil, for example, he doesn't need to work anymore. A lot of them will eventually become billionaires, right? But just by the law of numbers, but they don't need to work anymore because, so I asked him, I was like, okay, why do we continue to do this? And I already didn't know the answer. It's and this is unprompted for me. It's Eric, I just love the game, man. It's just so fun. And that's exactly what it is. Why do we continue to play? Why does Warren Buffett continue to play at age, 91 or 92 years old, or Charlie Munger, 97, 98 years old? It's because it's fun, because we can help other people and we enjoy what we do. There's a purpose to waking up.
Right. And, I wrote a post on LinkedIn recently because I'm on, Route 66 and, ageism is real. And what happens is people are what we're supposed to cut off our passion and purpose because we've reached a certain age that was identified during the Industrial Revolution, an industrialized economy. No, 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 no. You have so much more. And to your point, for you, Neil, anyone who has already become financially independent, what do they need? No, golf, travel, all of that is over in a heartbeat, spa treatments, whatever. You're done, you're bored. You need to keep giving. So you talk about things that are important for the short-term focus and long-term focus. What advice can you give newbie founders to help them? And just one little thing I wanted to add, Eric, is that what I love about your gamifying life is it turns you into the observer. So you're looking at it from out here and not always being caught up in taking things personally. So if you could just talk a little bit about short-term, long-term focus and how that gamifying life works.
Let's put a pin in that question because I might forget it. But I want to talk about the observer piece because I've never mentioned this on anything before. But my favorite unit in StarCraft, which is a strategy game, is the observer. So the observer is actually a unit that is invisible and can fly around looking at anything, right? It can detect anything. So it just kind of looks around and just tries to predict and look ahead. And so, that to me, I mean, that goes back into gamifying things, right? Like how I also look at gamifying organizations, which I'm happy to talk about later. It's like, how do we incentivize people and how do we make it really fun? And there are a lot of companies out there. I was talking to one last week. They're already at 100 million in annual recurring revenue. So that wasn't answering your question. Can you repeat your question again?
That's okay. So, the short-term and long-term focus, because, we have to, be focused on what we need to get done this week, this quarter. But at the same time, we still have to have our eye on the long-term focus. And that's something that you talk about a lot. And I was wondering if you could add a little value to founders as they navigate their murky waters.
Totally. Yeah. So for me, the short-term focus is on the ad agency. And the reason I say that is because I would say maybe 70, 80% of people that go into entrepreneurship that listen to this, you're going to find that you're going to try to do every single thing. You're going to compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 25. You're going to be like, oh, I have this agency. And then now I want to try doing courses. And then I want to try doing the SaaS thing. I want to try doing this, that. And I'm like better than other people. And then you realize like that actually doesn't make any logical sense because if someone else is putting 100% in their effort and then you are only putting 25% in, how are you supposed to beat that person? Because it's a very competitive world. And so what I would say is, I've learned the hard way that trying to do a bunch of different things at once is a sure path to failure. But when you focus in all your efforts, things just compound over time. And that internal rate of return we're talking about, the S&P 500, right? You might get like, 8-10% a year. But when you're putting money back into yourself, back into your business, your internal rate of return might be 30, 40, 50% over time, right? So that's the short term. Now, the long term is on continuing to build or buy cash flowing businesses and then invest into other opportunities. So for example, I invested in a company called Synthesis, which they're actually reimagining education. They're gamifying education. And the guy that co-founded the company, he actually co-founded a school with Elon Musk. I think it was called Ad Astra. And they're taking those kind of philosophies and applying it to this school. And it's actually growing very quickly because I think you and I can both agree that education's broken. So I want to continue to look at things that will change what is broken in the world. And I just want to cash flow and then invest in those things.
Right. And one of the founders about a year and a half ago that we had on the show was on his way to do that for education. And he, did that wonderful pivot and realized that people were not connecting. This remote work is great, but you still don't have that connectivity. And so what he created was a platform that gamified. So let's be in the Tiki Lounge and have this wonderful conversation about, whatever you need to talk about, a meeting, but it was not this Zoom boring thing. It was in the Tiki Lounge or at the beach. I mean, he gamified it. It's really phenomenal. And I think a lot of innovation is coming out of that, Eric. And I love that. Now, what can founders do when they're really getting hit? And you know this to be true, when you're going from that employee mindset to an owner mindset. You are now an entrepreneur. This is your business. You're in charge. No one is rewarding you for your work. You have to cheer yourself on. And there's really no one to talk to, maybe your co-founder, but otherwise you can't be talking to your vendors, your team. You have to be presenting a certain front. How do folks stay and manage the high levels of uncertainty? What are your thoughts around that?
Just a couple of things. I would say poker should be required learning in high school, maybe, because you learn how to manage risk, you learn how to manage bankrolls, you learn how to manage your emotions, you learn how to manage kind of people around you, and you know when to take shots too, right? So poker is really kind of introduction to business, and that would be, you know, at a very high level, like a foundational thing that you can do. Now, in terms of dealing with startup stress, founder stress, there's a lot of different communities out there. There's entrepreneurship can be a very lonely game, especially if you're a solo founder. So I'm a solo founder. And what's really helped me over the years is joining different organizations. So I'm in a group called YPO. I used to be in a group called EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. And these are worldwide groups where everyone understands the same pain that you're going through. They might have different businesses, but people are sharing the 5% of things that they wouldn't share with their spouse or with their friends because they just wouldn't understand. And so that's been instrumental for my growth. And I'll share a story. Maybe when I was 27, I had no idea how to save this company. You know, everyone in that forum, when I started, everyone was way more experienced than I was. People would share these cash flow forecast documents with me. Here's what I would do. Here's what happened to me when I was in your situation. Like, we've all been through that, right? And that helped my mindset. It's like, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't suck that much. And also I'm going to take some of your strategies and tactics to help. And, you know, they told me like a couple years later, because I was with these guys for about 7 years. And they said, yeah, the first year, they're like, man, you were just like, you had nothing going for you, right? And then they're like, you know, look at you now, which but it's the credit goes all to them because they're able to help me. So having peer organizations goes a long way.
And it's representation, folks. You know, we know here on the show that we only amplify diverse founders and investors. It's seeing that, and then you're surrounded by your peer, and you're hearing how they struggle. We hear this on the show a lot, Eric. How did they struggle? The rut rows, the disasters, the thought that, you know, as you said, I took it from worse to, you know, bad to even worse. You know, how did they get to the other side? And when you can see how they got to the other side, and in your case, you were able to see, oh, cash flow. I see it. Okay. But they got their bookkeeper or accountant to crunch those numbers. So, but you learned what they meant, or, you know, my favorite, everybody, the LTV CAC ratio, your marketing return on investment. So important to know. I've got a great video on the channel, so be sure to check it out. These are things that you don't know going in. How much is it going to cost to acquire that customer? And so you surround yourself with other founders who are scratching their heads or figuring things out so you can up your game, level up in that conversation. So let's talk about the difference between grit and grind. Okay, so folks, you're always hearing about the daily grind and they're grinding away. This is no good for you. Okay, grinding can be a losing proposition. So when you need to level up, you need to focus on your grit, which is what's coming from inside you to level up. What are your thoughts about these two words and theories, Eric?
Yeah, I think there's two different ways to look at it. I'll provide an example. So grinding to me is doing the same monotonous task over and over. So for me, it was doing my data entry job when I graduated from college. And so that I didn't feel like I was building anything for the long term. Now, the example of grit would be when I was about to shut the single grain agency down. And at that moment, it's like, okay, do you power through and try to actually build something and build on top of your mistakes? Or do you just give up? And so that's an example of grit. You know, they both kind of fall under this endurance umbrella.
Yeah.
But there's one where it's like, okay, you probably need to make a change. The other one's like just, you know, having the guts to power through something.
Yeah. And it's so important. So as you were pulling together this book and creating the chapters and helping folks, you know, gamify their life, what's like some of the most powerful pieces of feedback you got from readers who read your book and went, oh my gosh, what you said here really changed my life?
Yeah, I mean, the chapter I love the most is titled Thievery. So that's one of the power ups, and that means ethically stealing from other people, because we're all building on the shoulders of titans anyway.
Yeah.
And so even this podcast, like anything I'm saying or anything you're saying, it's really built off of the, you know, thinking from thousands and thousands of years, right, of humans. And so, you know, thievery, again, there's nothing wrong with stealing. I mean, someone said that, you know, that actually taught them that it's okay to not try to be original every time. And, you know, it takes a lot of pressure off of them at the end of the day. And for other people, it's like, hey, like I actually needed this reframe because like it takes gaming and puts it in a positive light. And now I'm going to try to build on top of it. So, you know, those are two examples.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Whoop, I got to click on this. My other question is, now you have, speaking of leveling up, and everybody, you can see this, heroes.levelingup.com/heroes. Talk about what this is about, because this is NFT. You've got a great character behind you on the screen there. I can pull up a little visual as well. What is this Leveling Up Heroes? And you've got great characters, avatars. What is this all about?
Yeah, so leveling up heroes actually falls within the entire mission of training and investing in the next generation of founders. So basically, what we did there, one of the reasons why I did an NFT in the first place was to build scar tissue around it. So we actually, on the ad agency side, we do have a lot of Fortune 500s coming in, and they're actually interested in doing NFTs. So if we're actually going to help them, we actually have to understand how the game is played. That's the second piece of it. And then for me, NFTs are it's the intersection of business and gaming. So we can create these different characters, and then we can allow people to create IP around them. And it's just something that I'm going to continue to build, over the rest of my life. And so to have people like, why do we wear certain shirts, right? But like, we want to identify with things. And so that's what we're trying to do with Leveling Up Heroes. We're trying to make the characters interesting, create storylines around them, and perhaps even create games down the road. But it's a very slow burn for us, I would say. We're not trying to, those of you that are familiar with NFTs, we're not trying to become like a Bored Ape Yacht Club where you raise like $400 million and you try to build IP around it. That's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to build more of let's call it like a community club or like a social club.
Totally get that. And folks, you build community around what aligns folks, right? And so you have an NFT that aligns folks, then you get deeper conversations, and through gaming. I mean, this is the beauty that I've watched is through gaming and gamifying anything. You build community, you build relationships, and most importantly, you build connection with others, right, Eric?
Totally.
Oh my gosh, I love that, something fierce. And speaking of connections, can we talk a little bit about an event that you and your longtime pal now, Neil, are hosting in Miami? Can you share a few details about the event? Because I'm just going to read, folks. It's a conference with the brightest minds in the business sphere to help other successful entrepreneurs gain insider knowledge on marketing and sales secrets that are never discussed online. Tell us more about that, because who wouldn't want to learn from you and Neil?
Yeah, so the event's hosted by me. Neil's just a participant.
Okay.
So Neil, we actually talked about the other day too. It's he wants to continue to come because they're fun, right? So for me, I have always loved events, right? Because I get to control the speakers, the entire experience, and I get to just make it my own. And so this one's called Leveling Up Founders, and it's a private community. You can learn more at live.levelingup.com, but it's basically for 7 to 9 figure founders to get together and learn from each other, and also learn from, certain speakers, right? So those of you that are into marketing, the last event we did was actually 3 weeks ago. And, we had Neil was there. We had Alex and Layla Hormozi speak, Christo, Sam Evans, Vanessa Lau. There's like a couple of these names that people might be familiar with, but it wasn't really the speakers that stole the show. It was the people. So when we did a rating, right, we did a survey at the end. It was like, okay, 9.8 out of 10 rating. And then like, what did you enjoy the most? It was the people, right? So what we try to do here is we try to connect people at the top of their game, and also with people that are rising stars. And so the people in the crowd, we had people that founded like Comic-Con. One guy was a president of Sony for like 30 years. So what I'm really good at is, again, connecting the dots, right? So getting the right people in the room and then just having magic happen. And so we keep this group to about just like 100 people or so. We try to keep it small, and we just try to curate it heavily. So we're not trying to do like a really big event, at least for this one.
Right. And folks, this is business mastery at its best. So what do you do when you get that level of minds in a group? Eric is absolutely right. You are learning from your peers as much, if not more, than those on the stage. The speakers on the stage are facilitating so that the people that you're hanging out with are having aha moments. You're having aha moments. You're all gelling together, right, Eric? And it becomes this big.
Yeah, I mean, you come for the speakers. The speakers are the draw sometimes, but ultimately you end up staying for the people, which is the community.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about success, because you at this point in time have had what others would think tremendous success. So what is that looking like today? But also, what do you see on the horizon? What do you see, like what will make you feel just delicious inside, and that you have reached a goal or have that yummy feeling of success? Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, man, I feel delicious every day. So like I actually put something on LinkedIn today saying like, happy Friday is actually a demotivator and it's a career killer. And the reason I say that is because the more you repeat a phrase over and over and over, it starts to become embedded in you. And for me, whenever I felt happy Friday in my head, I was actually working a dead end data entry job where I would look forward to the weekend. I would dread Mondays. And so now every single day, whether it's a good day or a bad day, I just don't look at it that way because every day is a gift, right? So every day is a gift. That's one. The second thing is if I look at how, let's say people are in a third world country, they don't have clean drinking water or, they don't have access to food and electricity. Their lives are way worse. Or maybe even a soldier that fought in World War II, right? So really my problems are nothing compared to theirs. So every single day is a gift. I'm going to give it my most. And I already feel like I'm living my best life at, wherever I'm at right now. And over time, like the law of numbers, I want everyone to think about this. If you can build a great business, let's say it's a service business, and let's say you can sell it for, I don't know, $5-10 million or so, maybe at age, you're 40, 45, 50, you're still really young, right? And you continue to compound over the years. Let's say you compound at 10% a year over the next 10, 20 years or so, like you're going to get to a really good result no matter what. And I think anybody can do it because I've seen people that are really good at school, they make it happen. People that sucked at school, they make it happen. And so if they can make it happen, then why can't you make it happen?
Excellent advice. And folks, you may remember when we had Sarah Doucette on the show, she and her husband started the Under Canvas, the first glamping company. And they started this because it was something they knew that they could grow and build and eventually sell, Eric, and then go and do what they really wanted to do. So they did sell in 2017 for 100 million.
Great.
And their big vision is to change the GDP in Africa by investing in 1,000 female founders and helping them reach 100 million, because that will change the economic landscape of the continent. Now, that's a big, hairy, audacious idea, but it speaks to what you're talking about. Sell your business, and then you can have some greater impact as well. Oh my gosh. And can we talk a little bit about measuring success? Because so often folks are looking outside themselves and using someone else's measuring tape. How can they level up and really understand what success should be looking like for them?
Yeah, to me, success is just being able to work on whatever you want to work on every day. So that's a very simplified version of it. I don't think it needs to be, oh, I need to make this amount of money, I need to compare myself to someone else. It's just, if you have the freedom to work on whatever you want to work on, that's already a huge accomplishment that most people can't say that they have.
That's right. And I think too, what you were speaking to about the Happy Friday, these things that make us feel like, oh, thank God the work is done. We'd love for you to reach that point of it being blended. Yes, you want to have boundaries, when you want to have time to restore and rejuvenate, right, Eric? And take care of that part of your body. What do you do when you need to detune and detach for a while? What works for you?
I think little mini retirements are good. So every quarter or maybe every 2 quarters or so going somewhere. So I was in Spain about a month or two ago and I was there for 2 weeks. And so that was really helpful. And then, recently we did an event. I was in LA for 2 weeks. And so that open space to disconnect and just think. When you come back, you're invigorated. You come up with better ideas when you have space, and then when you're not in the weeds, and you work on the things that are ultimately the not urgent but important things. Those are the things that are going to drive strategic value for the long term. So I think having that space is pretty helpful.
Thank you for that. And final question before we wrap up, and that is entrepreneurship. We've talked a lot about it, and you certainly talked about it being the best personal development program, and I'm right there with you. How has it served you as you look back over the last 12 years, 13 years? How has it served you both professionally and personally?
Yeah, I would say it's everything I wanted playing games, right? Entrepreneurship, like I always thought to myself when I was 12 or 13 years old, like if I could just find something that felt like a game in real life, like I would be set. And entrepreneurship actually is that, because it doesn't end. You can continue to play and you can continue to make an impact in people's lives, whether it's people that you hire or your family or, your customers. And then you also get to meet other people that have the same mindset as you, that want to do interesting things, because people that are doing interesting things want to hang out with interesting people. So you don't have to, and here's the other thing. If you want to hang out with interesting people, you don't have to try to be an interesting person, by the way. Just go do fun stuff and then just be interested in them. And then naturally you just become friends. So I'm just excited to meet amazing people all the time, which is why I even bother with these peer groups, or I even bother with these events, because to me, ultimately, even though I'm an introvert, it all comes down to people.
Ah, I love that, something fierce. And yes, hi, Ruth. Ruth is from Nairobi, Kenya. She's our community manager, and she's reminding us of what Eric said, which is success is the freedom to be able to work on what you want to work on. And that is the truth. And when you want to work on it too is a wonderful addition. Any last thoughts before we wrap up, Eric?
No, I think it's, if you're in the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, I think learn as much as you can. That's what I did in the beginning. I used to go to these, before Audible was out, I used to go to these torrent websites to download these courses that were a couple $1,000s. So there's always a will. I mean, if there's a way, there's a will,
Yeah.
and you all can figure it out. So
That's right. I love that. Founders, you are problem solvers. Oh my gosh. A final clap to you, Eric, for joining us. We're so happy that you were able to share your wisdom with us today. And folks, I'll have all the links in the show notes on how you can reach Eric. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day, Eric. I'm going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
thanks, Andy. Bye.
Okay. Hey, folks. Oh my gosh, we learned so much from this remarkable man who is really making an impact on the world with his work in the world. And I'm just so grateful that he joined us and shared his wisdom. Please do not hesitate to pop your questions and comments in the post-show comment section, whether it's on the podcast or on the replay with the video. I'd love to share with you now who is coming up next. We have this incredible story, and it's the amazing Mark Raymond Jr. And Mark had his life change in a split second when he broke his neck after diving into shallow water while boating with his friends in 2016. He found his Split Second Foundation in 2018 and dedicated it to making people aware of the growing but oftentimes invisible population of people with disabilities, advocating for their rights, funding cutting edge research, and providing clear-cut steps to immediately impact their lives. I'm telling you, he has taken a disaster and turned it into an incredible, impactful opportunity and foundation. You are going to love, love, love meeting Mark. And how do you know whenever I'm posting a new show? You join the Startup Life Live meetup group. You scan that QR code or tap that link in the show notes and join us. And this way you'll get the deep dive on whomever I'm having on this show. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that you were able to tune in today and get the gems from our wonderful guest, Eric Siu. Please be sure to follow me everywhere I glow online. I'd love to hear what you're up to and share your business. I want to amplify you and celebrate you for having the courage to launch a business and figure things out and solve the problems that your customers have, clients have, and everything that you're doing to make it work in your life. We're here for you, okay? In the meantime, be sure to also ask for help. Always, always, always reach out to others because people love to help. And there's someone who could connect you with an investor, with an introduction at a company that you would love to be doing business with. You never, never know. All right. Until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Mwah to all. Cheers.